Hey everybody, thanks for watching Rob Nelson Live. We are here in Jacksonville. See, we got a lot of people behind us. Woo! This is our youth town hall. And come over, Deanna, Zach. Deanna, you are the founder of Spear.
Yes.
Yes, right? Spear is a youth organization. And you came to me, and Deanna came to me and said, after we did our adult town hall in Jacksonville, was like, hey, I want to do one with young people. So next thing you know, we decided we'll do it and stream it on my platform, and you guys can all interact and watch. Why did you do this?
I actually got that question throughout the evening, but honestly, I feel like we're often amplifying the voices of either people who are already active in the community like me, or adults or people of power. But just because we can't vote doesn't mean we don't have a voice. So there's all types of youth here. There are people with crowns. There are just regular students. There are students who have never been given a platform, but now it's our time to shine.
And what does Spear stand for?
Spear stands for showing political engagement and responsibility.
Exactly, showing political engagement and responsibility. Zach here is a member of Spear too. Zach's kind of almost like co-hosting with me, like co-piloting. Yeah. He's going to be running around talking to people, right? Why is this important to be doing?
This is important to be doing because we want to get those unheard voices heard out there in the public. Those are always the most important voices sometimes.
Do you think young people have enough voice right now?
We have social media, since y'all don't know how to work Instagram, but...
Hey, I can do a boomerang. You taught me.
I taught him how to do a boomerang, exactly.
Ever. When you're over a certain age, that's all right. But you don't have enough of a voice. And part of why we're doing this, right, is we have representatives from a number of Jacksonville. We have Jacksonville Sheriff's Office here. We have the Duval County School Board here. We have a member of the City Council here. We have someone from the Kids Health Alliance. For those of you who don't know, is a big organization that works in a lot of areas around young people, including mental health. And they're here to listen, which is kind of great, right?
Right.
Listen, not talk. I'm like the only adult that can really talk a little bit.
A little bit.
Right.
Yeah,
a little bit. Just because I'm moderating, right? But they're going to be a little feedback from them too. And the idea here is to get young people talking about issues that matter to them. What do we got?
We have mental health, law enforcement, and education.
And you guys picked those topics.
Yes.
And we're going to spend like 35 minutes on each one. Everyone in the room can be part of it. It's students, young leaders from across the city. We're limited because of COVID, but people are out there watching, and that's what we're doing, right? So we ready to start?
Let's go.
Let's do it. Let's get going. Okay. Zach, you take a side. I'll take a side. All right, you guys. Thanks for being here. So we're going to do this pretty free form. The first thing we're going to talk about is law enforcement. Second thing we're going to talk about is mental health. The third one is school issues, all right? And we're going to kind of keep the clock running so we don't just get out of control. So I'm going to toss it out there with Zach. And you guys, let's do each one of these, just sort of setting up where your heads are at with stuff. So when I say students, young people, and law enforcement, what do you guys think? And be honest, when you say law enforcement, and I want to know, is it different if you're white, if you're black, if you're rich, if you're poor? So, Zach, take it away. Go. Let's get some hands up when you say law enforcement.
Anything to say, just raise your hand and I'll come over to you.
Law enforcement. Come on, somebody's got an opinion on law. Just because they're here, they're not going to, whatever. Okay, back here. All right, I'll get you back here.
All right.
You can stand up, though.
Thank you. Until 2020 came, law enforcement was just law enforcement. It was the police officers down the road, some in my neighborhood. But ever since what happened in 2020, then I became fearful of who they are, where they are. I started becoming more self-aware. Every time I go to work and they visit, I'm respectful, even watching if I say something wrong or not. And I don't think they are bad people. It's just that they have power over me, so I'm more fearful of them.
And do you think that you're more fearful as a black guy than if you were white, or is it all the same just because you're young?
I think it's race plays a part of it, but I don't want to say that just because I'm black, that's why I'm fearful. I think just because I'm black, I see the fear. I see the police brutality. But I think other white fellows should understand that they are affected by police brutality too. Okay. White person. Somebody who's white, respond. White guy talk about cops. No, I don't know if it's going to be the same or not, but Come on, everybody's going to be in this by the time we're done. All right. Zach's going to go find someone else. Someone put your hand up for Zach to get to.
I mean, I support the police. I think they do a great job for our communities. But I also think that their training may not be as in depth or as needed as we need for all situations. And I don't know, I feel like at this point, police have been brought out to do too many jobs. I feel like we have them serving in our communities, doing too much when they should be, like, we don't really need a police officer with a gun, a taser, everything to pull people over on the side of the road, at least in my opinion. I think we could have like safety officers that drive around and pull people over, and if they need backup, they call it in. But we don't need someone with all this fire on them, like all this firepower on them, just to pull people over on the side of the road.
So the firepower scares you?
A little bit, yeah. I'm not a huge fan of guns, so.
Okay, so we got someone over here. Go ahead.
Okay, so how do you feel about the police in our community?
Speaking specifically, I go to Ribault High School, and I've been pulled over in my community. I was at a four-way stop. I got there second. I was accused of not stopping, and I was in my mom's car. She drives a red Dodge, and it has tinted windows, so I knew exactly why I was being pulled over, the real reason. So specifically, I don't agree that 2020 has changed my perception of police brutality or the police community or Jacksonville Sheriff Office. My experience with the police has started when I was young, so I do think that with me being a Black woman in a predominantly, white city and things like that, it does change my perspective on the police. Do I respect them? Yes, but am I fearful of them? Absolutely.
And you are fearful. And again, I don't want to turn this into, like, we all know how the perception, right? And the police officers here, I know you're listening and you guys are both Black cops too, but I mean, I get it. There's an issue, and I don't want to turn this into a pick on the cops, but I want you guys to be honest about your feelings, because the next piece of it's going to be, how do we get it to move somewhere more productive? Because nobody's winning, right? If you guys are scared, and I'm going to ask them after, but, to get their perception, imagine being in their shoes, right? It's not fun to walk around knowing a bunch of people are scared of you. You can hear me? There are people just like, is there another mic you can bring me? There we go. It's back on. No, that's for the people at home to hear me. There are people like everybody else. Wake up, go to work. They don't want to, they don't want to end up being shot, and they don't want to really shoot anybody. But we'll get to that in a second. I still want more of your perceptions, because that fear is real for you, right? You're not making it up.
Hello, my name is Charlize Rutland. I'm from Andrew Jackson High School. I agree off of Anaya, and I feel like there's a pros and cons to police officers, because I work at Harvey's, it's a grocery store, and of course we have police officers there to, monitor the store, make sure nobody's no stealing. And there's a lot of homeless people that's in wheelchairs. There was an incident where they caught an old man stealing, and they called 3 police officers for a man in a wheelchair when there was one guy. Why do you need 4 police officers for one guy in a wheelchair? I feel like they take their power to the above and beyond when it should not be that. You're one guy with a guy in a wheelchair. You do not need all that backup. Sometimes they take it too far, and they need to learn their boundaries. That's how I feel about it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. Other hands up, okay. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so my name is Zenzle, and my opinion on the police, well, I feel like the police are needed in the community to have a certain enforcement to make sure everything's okay. But within our community, the police kind of takes control over things and does kind of wrong. So I fear for my own life, but I also feel for my brothers, my uncles, my cousins. And it's just getting to be too much. We're in 2020, 2021. We shouldn't have to deal with these problems anymore. We should be able to just come together and come with a solution. Everybody's always trying to put blame on someone, but they're never trying to find a solution. And I think that's the problem.
Let me ask you something. Why do you think we do still have to deal with these problems? It's an interesting point you make, that we shouldn't have to, but we are. Whose fault is that? Is it everyone's fault? I don't want to put blame just to put blame, but figuring out how to solve it means figuring out why we still deal with it.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily any one person's fault or any one group's fault. I think it's more of a collective thing. We all have to come together and figure out the solution, or come together and figure out where we went wrong within society and try to, figure it out.
So would you say prejudice plays a large part in how the interactions between youth and cops go nowadays?
Yes, I do. I think there is a prejudice. But I also think it's because we see things in the community. Like it's not just like just a random thought like, oh, I'm about to get shot, or oh, they're about to do something horribly to me. Like we're seeing it happening. And I think it's important for everybody to stop acting like it's not happening and just figure out a solution.
Well, I think that's a great point, and I want to get to that. We'll just spend a couple more minutes I'll get to you in 1 sec.
All right. Hi, I'm Rhiannon. I go to Fletcher High School. My perspective is that I didn't really think about the prevalence of the police in my life or other people's lives before the events of 2020. Then with the access of social media and highlighting the events of police brutality, it opened my eyes to really what I see as the duality, or I don't know how to say it, duality of the police. Because in one sense, they're here to protect us. We call on them in emergency. We call on them when we need help. But at the same time, we see these issues of police brutality where they are the ones that are causing like the issues. They are hurting us. I recognize that I come from a place of privilege, however. So as like a white woman living in a relatively nice neighborhood where we don't see as much police brutality, it's really opened my eyes 2020 and seeing how these issues really play a part in other people's lives.
Okay, I want to get you in. And I just want to say, I think one of the issues people, when you say white, you come from a place of white privilege, and I always, I'm so over the white privilege thing, but I get it. Nonetheless, affluence is even more. And one thing I want everyone out there to think about, and when I come over to you guys, officers, is I think there's a perception among a lot of people, especially in poor communities, that they're, as people have said it to me, and even cops have said it, that they're policed harder.
Yeah.
Like that it's not so much that they're out to get black people. They just police urban, tougher communities harder than they police more affluent communities.
Right. Like if there's more cops in the area, it's more likely that you'll get caught committing a crime. Whereas, and there
may be more crime in the area. I mean, it's a fair thing. If you go into certain neighborhoods, there's more crime. In fairness to them, not that it's okay to police harder, but that you're policed harder. Right? Yeah. Are you where did you grow up in Jacksonville?
Me, I grew up on all sides of town, so I've experienced how the different areas are, but most of my life I lived on the west side, and that area is typically police kind of heavily dependent on the area on the west side that you're at.
Right. Okay, go ahead.
My name's Shariah Brown. I'm representing Paxton High School and Jack and Jill of America Incorporated. And building off of the comment you made earlier about over-policing, there is a history of over-policing in poorer communities and in Black communities because of how cities were constructed, and writing papers on it for school and studying the history over the past year, learning how, cities were built and how the Black communities were pushed to the outskirts and pushed into poor areas, and the police were put there, and how the police were built really brought attention to how this is a systemic problem. And I think the reason why we shouldn't be dealing with this problem anymore is because we know the solution to this problem. We know the solution, how to fix it. We know what we can do to make this better for everyone in every community. But there are people who are still continuously denying that this is a problem, denying that systemic racism exists, denying that police brutality exists. And I think until we can get everyone to agree that it exists and that it is a problem, the problem will never be fixed.
Well, let's say we agree it's a problem, right? And let's say you guys all agree it's a problem, right? Then, and we'll get there in a minute, then it's how, right? Because just knowing why it's there doesn't make it go away, right? I was saying to you and Deanna last night, right?
How to solve the problem.
Yeah, right? Because systemic racism may be there, but you can't snap your fingers and it goes away. That doesn't mean you can't have better relationships with law enforcement. Because at the end of the day, right, that's what you want, right? You want a better relationship.
Right, we want a better relationship. I think that the solutions that have been offered in order to fix these problems are really good solutions, such as having different branches for different things, such as a case that recently happened. A Black man was shot. He was having a mental breakdown, and they called for mental health professionals to be there, but instead police showed up. And because he was already in a panic state, they assumed that he was trying to attack when he was really just trying to calm down, and they were supposed to help him calm down, but instead they freaked out and they ended up shooting him. And I feel like if we have actual mental health professionals come out, or people come out who can handle specific situations rather than people with guns showing up to every situation, that people would feel more safe and that de-escalation would increase. And I feel like if we increase de-escalation and the ability to de-escalate huge problems like that, then we wouldn't have as many panic shootings as we do.
Okay.
How you doing? My name is Calvin Dorsey. My only thing I feel that's really big and important to this whole situation that people don't look at to find a solution is that really in society it's just like a battle of perspectives. You know, we look at one side of society versus the other side of society. We already make a judgment before we even encounter them. Like me right now, since a young age, I was always learned to not be like the police, especially where I come from, living in Sherwood on the north side. But then towards more and more of my age, and I actually started developing myself and being in different predicaments, especially like now I'm a management at UPS. So I deal with people from a whole different array, you know, and as you meet these people, you talk to them, you see them in different lights, but then you always understand that their heritage or their ancestral background developed them to have these beliefs. So now you have these same type people in our police force coming on the streets, try to protect us in a sense, but they look at us in this already way because they believe our ancestral. So now we're sitting here living in a lifestyle, trying to battle back and forth. But what do we do? What should we say? How should we be? But in reality, everybody has to change their perspective of everybody and accept them just as I accept you. Then you have a lot less conflict on the road. When I do pull over a Black man and it's like 4 of them listen to rap music, might smell a little marijuana, some of them have goals in their mouth, and now you see like, oh, they're on some drama. But in reality, they could be just like anybody else.
Right. So kind of what you're saying is that we get this situation where people's perceptions are like baked in.
Yes.
It's like I go into, and look, let's be honest. A lot of white liberals do this all the time, right? I mean, I guarantee you, right? And I mean this, they're well-intentioned, but I know people who do it. They walk down the street and they see you. And you're like a Black dude and you're pretty dark skinned and you dress like that.
Yeah.
And they do the little shuffle, the little thing. I've seen people do it. I'm like, what is your problem? What, do you think he's going to hurt you? Like, you know, like if I literally had people like push into me, right? It's built in this, like he might hurt me. And every Black guy I know, especially if they're tall, says it, like, you know, and it's like, right. You get that all the time. That's reinforced at a hyper level when it comes to, right. And then does it come back the other way though? What happens when you were 15 and you saw cops living where you lived?
Exactly, in the same perspective. Like I looked at them as like, okay, they're in my neighborhood. They're not really coming in my neighborhood to help. They're more here to target people or take somebody out of it. So, but then as I got older and I started to realize what the people in my neighborhood were doing, how they are influencing my neighborhood, I'd be like, okay, I see the reasons for being over here, the reasons for you doing what you need to do. But the way you approach it isn't the same way that you're going to approach it to anybody in the other society doing the same exact thing.
Right.
So I feel like since you already had that mindset, since you already been developed that way through your family lines, that my personal opinion should even be allowed in the force. Because the moment you come in, you can't erase the mindset that you already been baked into you since you was a young age.
So what do you guys think would start moving toward something different than that? Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm Lance from Fletcher High School, and I've had the opportunity to live in a lot of places, go to school in a lot of places, both in the U.S. and internationally. And one thing I've noticed where the communities with the best relations with police tend to have the most positive interactions with police. So while where I was living previously, our school resource officer, who's a great guy, he really got involved with the school. So he would show up to almost all the football games. He would talk to kids in the hallways. Everybody really liked him. And I think that really helped create an understanding between both the police officers helping protect our school, but also the people going to the school. And I think that it's really important for communities to have an emphasis on really just better and more positive interactions with police, so understanding can be built between the communities.
That's a good point. And I think that's going to come up in the solution thing, right? Right, Zach? Because that's something we talked about the other day.
Yeah.
That's an actual thing we could talk about.
Yeah, the more interaction between the cops and the students.
That could be actually created in systematic ways. It doesn't cost much money or whatever, really creating programs to create that. There's some of that now.
Hello there, my name is Adam Damasio. I am also representing Fletcher High School. And to go off the points made by Lance and Calvin, I believe that a lot of the controversy that has recently been surrounding the police force in our country is not so much as a problem with police officers as individuals, but as what the police represent. It says so on this pamphlet that was handed out to us recently. For a police officer, there is no such thing as a routine traffic stop. At all times, they must be prepared for whatever happens. And, the goal of a police officer is not to go out and shoot someone, but, they need to be equipped in case there is some scenario that they get into that's dangerous. However, what police officers have represented as an idea, at least from what I've seen in the mainstream media over the past year or so, is that police officers are, instead of the protectors of violence or the perpetrators of violence, are the those who proliferate psychological shock and awe, especially among these minority communities and these vulnerable communities. And these officers who are meant to be our protectors have become the biggest proponents of harm, and really that dissonance has caused this rift in our society that I believe I have seen today.
I want you to go ahead, Joy. But before I do, I want to ask you guys something. So what was your name?
Adam.
So what Adam just said, do you guys really think that, and I mean this honestly, do you all really think that for the most part, what Adam, if I'm getting it right, is saying is cops really are the ones who, and I'm not dismissing that there's violence and that there's, I'm not dismissing that there is a lot of bad policing, but do you guys really think that most cops, like say in Jacksonville, really just want to go out and create mayhem for people? Raise your hands up if you think that really is, they're mostly just not good people. Do you think they're good people who get stuck in bad situations? Or good people are they good people who are trained wrong? Trained wrong. Trained wrong. A lot of senses of training. These guys here are probably not bad guys, right? Right? But yet you might be scared of running into them in a situation. So I just want to put that out there because we're going to get to training comes up a lot, and cops will often say, well, we hear about training all the time. One second,
Rob. I'm over here.
Go ahead, Deanna.
Okay, so the topic of law enforcement can go so many different ways, but I think we need to come back to the purpose of this. So real quick, it's a yes or no. I would rather everybody in this room raise their hand. Do you fear the cops? Yes or no? Raise your hand if you do. Go ahead with the cameras. Go ahead and go around and get all of that.
That's a lot of people.
Now the next question is, you can put your hands down. What are we going to do to fix that? What are we going to do to dilute that, to decrease that, to fix that? What do you, for everybody who raised their hand, what do you need to see?
Go ahead. Toss it out.
Well, 1 second, because they have had their hand raised for this whole time.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see that. We're getting real feedback on that.
I think Deandra had a question.
We'll go to D, then we'll go to Robbie.
Hi, my name's Deandria Carter.
You got to move that mic away.
I represent Sandalwood High School and serve as the task manager for Spear. And I just wanted to go back over the topic of over-policing. I don't think it's just Black people in their communities. I think it's Black people as a whole. And we see that at the different protests. When there's a majority of Black people, police are very quick to respond with tasers and pepper spray. And then when it's the majority people that are not of color, they're very slow. So I think that's the problem. Why are they so quick to respond to people of color, but slower with people who are not of color?
And that's a big question, right? And I don't know that we can answer that, but I want to come back to Deanna's thing because we're going to 10 more minutes on this and really start focusing, because she asked a great question, which is what would make it, and we'll get over it. We two people there. What would make a difference? I think Deanna, thank you for bringing that up. What would actually make it better for you that you didn't fear cops? That's actually something that could happen.
Well, Mr. Rock, just go if I hold the mic. Okay, I got it. I can't speak for everybody. I can only speak from my perspective. And my name is Rodney. For those who don't know, I go to Bishop Kenny. And my mother is a police officer. She served for over 20 years, and she'll be retiring soon. I can say for me, I wouldn't fear the police. As some of you, as other people in this room. And I think it's because of my encounters with police officers. We've I grew up around police. You know, I can tell you when summers, I would go to my mom to her job. You know, I remember being in the police union with, you know, eating with people in uniform. And so it comes with that understanding that not everyone in this room is against me. Not everyone in this room wants to see me in a bad position. Not to say that some don't, because the other side is the reality is there are bad people in the police force, and we all can say that. We all have seen it, and they do hold a level of prejudice, and so it takes both sides trying to come together more and more. We have 2 police officers in this room. They took this opportunity to be with us and to show that they're willing and able to be in this room and have a conversation. And it takes more of that.
Okay, let's get these couple more comments in over here. Over here. Go ahead, Joy.
Hi, I'm Joy Bowerman. I'm from University of North Florida, and I kind of have a different take with police officers from my own profession. I'm also representing AmeriCorps, and I served with AmeriCorps for a year at the ARC Jacksonville. And kind of our encounter was I served with people with developmental differences and people who are on the autism spectrum, Down syndrome, and other disabilities. And from seeing with their population how absolutely terrified they are of police officers and how fearful they are. And I remember having to have group conversations with my supervisors and such about what to do in case we had a police encounter on our facility. And talking with our residents and such, they would voice their fears and say how scared they were of cops because cops, in their words, didn't understand them and didn't know how to work with people like them. And from hearing from my supervisors and such, we really tried to have like JSO and other police officers come and learn more about mental health and working with people on the autism spectrum, working with people with developmental differences. And unfortunately, we've had absolutely like no really officers being very open to come visit us and to be able to learn more. And I think because of them not really wanting to learn more about how to work with people like them, it's instilled more fear with them as well.
Deanna, can you come up here? So Deanna was going to try to be quiet for a lot of this because she wanted more of you to talk, but I knew it'd just be a matter of time till she didn't, which is good because you always say such bright and focused things. So what I want to do before we get, because we're trying to keep this chunk to like 10 more minutes, is will you start out telling people what you shared with me about a solution that I think was a really interesting one about options for like creating more interactivity with, you know, policing, with police in the community. Does your mic not work? Does hers work?
It's on. It's on. Okay.
Because I think it's where we want to get to is things you're talking about, getting police to do things that would change that dynamic. And we'll get more of you in, but I just want to get that flowing there because you had a great suggestion about what might work that could actually happen.
All right. And then afterwards, could we go to Lydia? Awesome. Quite a few suggestions from anywhere to providing mental health resources for officers, because just like how we've all seen things, I'm sure they've seen things as well. So that needs to be a priority, and that comes from policy. But in addition to policy, I proposed having, officers, but prior to them being inducted or sworn in, to for while they're still recruits, to making it required that they do community service, and not just any kind of community service, but to be with students, to be with people who have had experiences like you, different students, a variety of students. Now, how you're going to regulate the diversity of the students interact, I don't know, but they need, before they are sworn in, they need interactions with people who look like me. They need to know what it's like to be in my shoes. They need to, I don't know, play a game of spades or tunk or something with me to know that if I'm getting aggressive or I'm getting hype, it's not, it's not a time for you to be defensive,
So part of your concern would be that it's police are often policing communities that they're not necessarily from. Sometimes they are, but often not from. That they haven't spent time in.
I think it's the lack of interaction, and then the lack of interaction on top of the fact that when you do have an interaction, both parties have already been affected by the stigma. We have 2 Black police officers here, so I'm pretty sure they could see both sides.
Right. And we're going to let you guys have a comment before we're done with this, but
At the end, because the youth need to speak.
no, exactly. At the end, you get a
Getting
comment.
back to
But,
Lydia.
but just on that note, would you guys feel like what Deanna's suggesting, that if there would be more interaction with police officers in a we're coming in once something's bad, that would be useful or good? Hands up if you think that'd be good. So about a little over half of you. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Hands up, you think it'd be good? You're nodding. Yeah? So that would make a difference. So we could, if the police force, if JSO could be working maybe with a group of young leaders to figure out what would actually be ways they could have more interaction. Would there be anybody here, for instance, who might, you don't have to sign your name up right now, but who would be willing to do that? If they were said yes, would come in and sit down and, once a month and talk through solutions, possibilities. Okay, good. That's something I want you guys to think about.
Hello, my name is Lydia Hanson. I go to Douglas Anderson, and Deanna basically took the words out of my mouth. I said, let's just creating a relationship with our police officers. Let's do a barbecue. Let's do outreach. Let's clean up the beach together. I mean, if you think about community, it's people who are living in the same space. We're building a relationship with these people. It's not like I'm this person, you're this person. We're all in this together. So let's do something fun. Let's go on a bike ride. Like, let's do something together so we can build this relationship. But the thing is that we only see 2 police officers of color, but where are their white counterparts? We also need that conversation with them as well.
Okay. Did you have something you wanted to say too?
I got something over here.
Okay, go for it. I don't know where you are, but go for it.
Hi, my name is Kimaya. I go to Lee. And I feel like something that would make me feel better to see with police is if the police showed less tolerance for stuff that happened. Because we see all this horrible stuff get posted on social media and the news and stuff. And then we're like all waiting, and then the cop gets suspended or put on like leave with pay. So we're like, it's something that is even more unsettling, because it's like, you know they can do something and not have really any repercussions. So it adds more like worry into the community, because like we can't really trust that something will be done because there's bad people. Sometimes that happens. People do bad stuff, but what's going to happen when they do are they going to get a slap on the wrist for taking somebody's father away from them, which is not okay. So I feel like that's one thing that they should take into consideration.
Okay, and I think that's a good point, right? And again, whether it's true all the time or not, that's your perception, and it's a widespread perception, right? That they don't get adequate, that they're not treated the same as you or I would be. And again, may not be true, may be true, right? And sometimes it's true, but it's your perception regardless. And I think that's what's so important, because our perceptions are what matter. Right? Their actual facts matter too, but really it's what we think. And most of you think I'm afraid of the cops, right? I mean, that's right.
Yeah,
that's the problem. Doesn't matter if it should be or shouldn't be. You are.
Right.
So you're kind of screwed until you're not.
Exactly.
And they're kind of screwed until you're not.
So it's hard, like being in a community where you're scared by the people who are sworn to protect you. It's a strange dynamic to think about. Like, it shouldn't be like that whatsoever. I don't even think that that's a fear that people in other countries have. People in other countries usually are not afraid of the police officers there, but in America, in this city, that's something that's common, very, very common.
Okay, we got time for 2 more comments before we. Okay, go ahead, and I'll get you over here before we go to mental health.
Okay, I think a solution would be taking away the pretense of violence. I can say that I have never been completely comfortable in a room with cops. Why? Because they have guns. They could kill everybody in this room if they wanted to. They probably won't, but they could. So taking away the option, any person who has more power over you will obviously feel superior to you. So taking away the option for them to be superior to us. I like the idea of interactivity, but I never want to be put into a situation where it could happen to me. In a room with cops, anything could happen. What if I say something they don't like and they decide, okay, well, I know I can kill you and get away with it, so I'm going to. So taking away that option, providing less violent weapons. There's no petty crime that requires you to have a gun. So different types of cops with different types of weapons, taking away the pretense of violence that allows them to feel superior. Because if I had a gun, sure, I would feel comfortable in a room with cops, but the violence is what scares me.
So the cops having a lethal weapon on their hip at all time is something that definitely gives the people in the community an uneasy feeling.
So we're going to get you in here. And just a thought to you guys out there watching too. That's a pretty radical idea. And I know most adults will immediately go, that is crazy. And I don't know if they're wrong or right. I mean, do you really want the cops to show up and somebody's doing something really bad and not have a gun? You know, but your point is interesting. Like, do we need to always have lethal weapons? Do all cops need to have lethal weapons? It's thinking out of the box, and that's what most grown-ups won't do as easily as you guys will. And you're going to be the future leaders. So you are the guys who will have to think outside the box in a way that actually would work, right? Does that make sense? I don't know if that addresses your point, right? I'm not dismissing it. I'm just saying it's tricky, but maybe we need to think of things that we haven't thought of.
My name is Winter. I go to Lee. But my thing is with the police is don't be so quick to shoot. Like, I feel like if they interact and trying to see what's going on before they just pull out a gun and just shoot, because that's just heartbroken. And you see everybody dead, see fathers, everybody just dying out of nowhere. Like, talk to us. If it comes to that point, then it comes to that point. But if you could just talk to us and see what's going on, then I think that would be better. That's all.
Thank you.
For me personally, I'm not necessarily scared of the police, but I understand that I have to be more cautious when dealing with them. And I think sometimes the problem between the two people, the two groups on the opposite sides are, I think we can be sensitive, a little bit too sensitive in terms of approaching the issue. And I think in terms of solutions, what first needs to happen is to end qualified immunity. To what qualified immunity is it basically gives cops the ability to do things without consequences. And I think second would need to be a more extensive vetting process when they apply to the jobs, because a lot of cops, they can get suspended on another force and then they can go to a different one and get on. And also I think cops should be able to pass a racial bias test before they are able to get on the force. And that in terms of solution, that's what I think needs to happen.
There's a lot of them there.
Yeah, that's
the racial bias thing, though, right? You got a lot of black cops, and you still got the issues around policing, right? I mean, you know, even black cops will often say that, right? So let me ask you, we're going to move to mental health, but let me ask you guys something. Do you think in general, and again, this is like a hands up maybe or whatever, as younger people, you guys are less driven by the race divide than we are as adults, or not? You know what I'm asking? Are you, is it as big? I'm not saying, I don't mean the race divide meaning around cops. I mean around each other.
I feel like it's a lot more talked about. It's a lot more openly talked about than it was before. Like, I feel like in previous generations, they kind of, you know, ignored it. But I feel like this generation is really tired of that. We're ready to fix the issues. We're done addressing the issues at this point, because we've seen addressing the issues is just addressing the issues. It doesn't actually solve the problem that needs to be solved.
Because my perception is that when I look at people older, I feel you guys seem more naturally to deal over race lines in a more organic way than we do. Like, it's more uptight with older people. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if that's true. Is that true for you guys overall? Or do you think you're just the same? Hands up if you think it's true. Hands up if you think you're just the same as we are, divided over race. Do you know what I'm asking you guys? Yeah, whether you guys are just more fluid about it. Like, if you walk into rooms, you all sit together. Like, you know, adults, if you put a bunch of white and black people in a room together and know each other, all the white people are going to sit with all the black people, are going to sit with all the black people. It happens every time. It happens to everybody? Okay, so I'm making that one up. Okay, last comment, then we're going to mental health.
About what you said about the divide, I believe that the divide is still there. It's just that the divide in the past, it was more okay. It was more allowed to be front and open about it. Back in the 60s, people were being lynched for it. But now it's a lot more quieter. It's a lot more seeped and it's a lot more casual than you expect. Starts as humor, then it starts as a little poking fun, and then soon it becomes a habit that if you stand up for yourself, you're looking out of place. And I believe that there we are somewhat segregated, just not seemed so, because there are schools in the same county that if you approach them, you'll see one's more diverse than the other. I go to Lee, and ever since I've been
And for people out there, Lee is mostly a black school.
Mostly black school. And ever since I've been in Duval County, I've been surrounded by other black people. So I never felt out of place. I felt like the majority in my life. But I know when I go to university, I'm going to be hit with a rock with the truth that I'm the minority of this world. And then that's where I'm going to experience racism. That's where I'm going to experience the blunt jokes. That's where I'm going to experience all of that. It's not that we are more fluent. It's just that a lot more people are willing to say the good things than the people who are bad because they already know that they don't want to get hurt.
Okay, thanks. Hey, can you guys do me a favor as we shift gears? Can you guys just commit to solving racism in your lifetime so we can be past it and done with it? Can you just do that? Because we couldn't. I'm kidding. Okay. Mental health. Mental health.
Mental health.
Let's talk about mental health. We got a tech problem? Mental health. So we wanted to bring, this was one that came out from you guys, that mental health was a big issue in high schools and young people. So for people out there, I don't know if you're aware that a lot of young people are actually thinking about their own mental health. So let's sort of set that up. Deanna, if you want to join us, you can. But we're going to kind of get into this issue of how mental health, and we have someone from Kids Health Alliance here. All right. When I was a teenager, mental health was not an issue. You would not have walked into a room of teenagers and said, "Are you guys worried about your mental health?" People would have been like, "What? You like we're crazy?"
All right, and that goes back to the being more comfortable to talk about serious topics. I feel like this generation is a lot more comfortable to talk about serious topics as we're all pushing for a solution now, rather than just finding out that, oh, there's an issue. Addressing the issue is the first step, but now we're ready to create the solutions.
Do you worry about your mental health?
All the time, all the time.
Like that you're depressed or that you're... So hands up, how many of you will acknowledge that you worry about your mental health? Anxiety, depression, fear. Do you guys talk about it? Do you talk about it amongst each other? Okay, that's a huge difference for anybody over 35. Didn't happen. You may have felt it. Not everyone would have raised their hands. And if you did, you didn't talk about it because people would think there was something wrong with you. So that's a positive thing that you guys address it. What I want to do is get you guys talking a little bit about why and what's causing that. So hands up to talk about why and what, and then what could be done, because Kids Health Alliance has the ability to do some of these things and they may not even know what you actually need done. I'm going to get a couple people who haven't talked and then I'll get to people who have.
Oh, hi, my name is Maya Jacobs. I go to Lee. I think what's very interesting is that the medicinal field itself, whether it's Eastern or Western, has expanded when it comes to mental health, but the stressors haven't been decreased. So even though we've learned more and more about mental health and we know what stresses people out or what causes you to be depressed, we still haven't done anything to get rid of those stressors or even lessen them.
What for you, and you guys on the other side, just start out when we saying, what for you triggers you the most? Is it anxiety? Is it depression? Is it just the world's a messed up place right now?
Probably my anxiety.
Anxiety about life.
No, not about life, but social anxiety.
Social anxiety. Okay.
So what for you is most prevalent the most in your life?
My name is Sean Lewis. I go to Lee. And I kind of want to go back to what you were saying earlier about how we talk to our friends more about mental health. And I feel like because with people who are older, they're used to paying $1,000 an hour for a therapist so they can solve all their problems. But it's like my friends are my therapists because they actually understand those issues and they can help me through all of that.
What do you talk to them about?
Because one main thing for our mental health is school. It's just like we have an intense workload, and I feel like it definitely became more apparent during the coronavirus and how we were all online school. And it's like we had so much work to do online, that way more than we had in school. And I understand that, we're at home, we have more time to do it, but having, let's say for me example, I had 20 assignments due in about 4 days because I'm in a dual enrollment program, but I still feel like that's too much work for one student to handle. If I ask my parents to help me with one problem, they can't even do that. So I feel like, why do you think a kid themselves can do 20 college assignments by themselves and then have no one to talk to about it? That's why I talk to my friends, even if it's just about homework. I have someone to talk to. And then that kind of also goes to, I'm kind of all over the place with this, but also it's just like, I don't talk to my parents about a lot of issues because they just don't understand. They won't understand the stuff that I'm going through, and they'll just say, basically, you have nothing to be depressed about.
So stuff like being depressed.
Yes.
And are most of you guys especially, are you able to tell your friends you feel depressed? You are. You're able to say, I feel depressed. I'm down. I'm really hurting right now.
Yes. Well, one thing that was brought up previously that I think is an integral point of the entire discussion of mental health is the fact that as students, especially now, our mental health is greatly tied to our education, primarily through two feelings or emotions or states of existence: the state of fear and the state of isolation. The state of isolation obviously was brought about by our online schooling, which was necessitated by COVID-19. But this brought about these feelings of these weighing anxieties about assignments and pressures, and especially for those of us who are applying to college this year, that adds all that extra load. And this isolation really can cause people to stir and then not have as many people available with which to discuss these mental problems. And then,
do most of you relate to that pressure in school? Hands up, because we won't see nods. Yes, most of you relate to feeling that. Go ahead.
All right, got one over here.
So I'm Black, so I can only speak from the Black experience. So for me, my social anxiety started young because I went to a predominantly white school, and there were 3 Black kids in my class, and we kind of followed each other, and about 6 Black kids in my cohort. So a lot of the psychological development that happens with Black kids who are put into white spaces, you crowd yourself, and like you pointed out, Black people sit with Black people, white people sit with white people. Jacksonville is a segregated city. So with me going to a white school, my development was different because I wasn't able to, a lot of times I begged my mom to straighten my hair because people made fun of me for the things culturally that I experienced. So I think a lot of it is that with mental health, it's very shunned upon with the Black community and within the Black experience because we experience trauma differently. I see people who look like me getting arrested, shot and killed, and doing drugs. That's the representation that I've grown up with. So how can I see better for myself?
So would a solution to the mental health problem be better, the solution be handled in school or outside of school?
I think in school, especially in impoverished areas, for example, John Rebold, we've lost a lot of our classmates to gun violence. So we see that. And for instance, St. Clair Evans was a school where a bullet went through a elementary school window. They said they received therapy for 1 day, and that's unacceptable. And that's just crazy to me because I went to New Berlin Elementary. I live in Ocean Way. If that would have happened at New Berlin Elementary, we would have received counseling for the rest of the school year. I had a traumatic experience where a white woman came into the classroom and called me a Black bitch. I didn't receive any counseling, and the woman, it happened towards the end of the school year, she was only banned from coming to the school. So we see disproportionately that Black kids are affected by mental health, not only just because of the Black experience, but on top of everything else that everyone else here can relate to. So could it be fixed in the schools? I think that when you have
majority white populations or white schooling where you have black kids coming, I think that all kids should receive free therapy. I go to therapy now. I have a black therapist, and it helps so much because she can relate and she understands. And it's all about pathology. So things that I've gone through generationally still affect me today. And I think that is also what happens when we talk about law enforcement. All of these issues, it happens with pathology. Racism is systematic.
Right.
It's going to take more than a conversation in order to fix these issues.
It's going to take way more than a conversation. And the point of conversation is to start getting people to have focusing on what they're not focusing on. So I don't want to pretend that just talking about it makes it go away. But I bet a lot of people don't know that feeling that you described, especially if they're not black, the feeling of, like you say, everyone I know, so many people shot this, that, this is my perception of how am I supposed to have a different self-perception, right? Our self-perceptions are built on what we see around us. So if we're not giving you the ability to have those things, whether that's an economic initiative, whether that's giving you the amount of counseling, giving you the support, giving you the ability to see differently, even somebody who doesn't self-identify that way like you is stuck going, some part of you seeing it in the mirror. And that's where I think the talk has to lead to some action, and why I think it's important that we have KHA and, school board here, because I don't think they necessarily are focusing on that the way they might be able to. They probably mean to, but again, it's why it's important.
My name is Anquan and I go to Lee. I was going to talk about how you just said, like, our self-perception, and it kind of goes both ways, because if people outside the community affect our self-perception, and that self-perception affects us inside the community, because I know I talk to my friends a lot about my low self-esteem, and a lot of that has to do with, in middle school, I went to a predominantly black school, Jeff Davis, but because our self-perception is us, with bad interactions with the police, doing drugs, being criminals, stuff like that. A lot of people call me white because I didn't really care about a lot of stuff. I didn't listen to a lot of rap, or I didn't really care about new dance moves or whatever was going on. And so I know a lot of other kids were called, a lot of other black kids were called white because they didn't fit the mold that society had made for them as black kids, black girls, black boys, and that hurts us as well within our own community. And that just affected me a lot still today. And that's what I talk to my friends about right now.
So you suffer from that feeling of a low self-esteem.
Yeah, and it just, because
like you just don't feel good enough.
Yeah, it always made me feel like everyone always said I wasn't black, and it always made me feel like, because I talk properly or because I like work or whatever, I wasn't black, I wasn't a part.
So I want everyone in the room and everyone watching to take a second. Will you stand up for a second? Because I think this is like a really powerful thing. Look at this guy. You wouldn't look at him and think he has low self-esteem. You wouldn't think you have any reason to have low self-esteem. I mean, you can't see behind his mask, but he's a good-looking guy. Like, he looks, nothing about him, right? He's articulate. I don't know how smart you are, but, reasonably smart. How many of you might feel the same way? And on the other side of it, how many of you might not realize that what you say or do could actually destroy someone's own sense of self, and you wouldn't even know you're doing it? Thanks. I didn't mean to put you up like a thing, but I think it's important, right? Because social media is so powerful, and you guys are capable of not, maybe you are aware. I'm saying just you in the room. I'm saying people out there, how much power it can be.
All right, we got a comment over here.
Yep.
You got it. All right. My name is Selassie, and I want to take it back to the question that you asked before about men and how they deal with mental illness and how they can talk about it with their friends. I want to say it's really hard, actually, because society builds this thought that we can't be weak. We had to be strong. So we can't speak about our problems. We got to keep it inside. And that's toxic to us. But, this is how we've been growing up. As a parents, we weren't supposed to say anything. My dad, I'm not trying to throw my dad out there, but no, I'm not supposed to, talk about what's bothering me. Just keep it inside. Don't worry about it. Like, you'll get over it soon. That's how I've been taught. So I don't talk about it with my friends. And I know, speaking on all the other guys, I know they feel the same way. They can't just speak about how they feel. They got to keep it inside.
Is it helpful even now in a space like this to be talking about it?
No.
It's not.
No.
Why?
I mean, it's a pride thing. I just feel like.
So you don't feel a freedom being able to talk about it?
I mean,
because I hear you say that, you're saying it's hard, and I get it, for men especially. And I think for black men, there's if you talk to mental health specialists, they talk a lot about how it's harder to get services in the Black communities. But in men in general, we're taught, like you said, I mean, I'm super sensitive, so I'm the other extreme, right? Girls are always like, you're too sensitive, whatever. But I get it. You want to be right. But do you feel a sense of like you could get strength and support if you could share it? What would help make that easier for you?
Oh, no, I feel like right now, like, yeah, I can break my shell a little bit, but it's just going to take a little while because I'm not used to, just talking about my feelings,
So what would help with that? What would make it for people like you? What is a thing that maybe Kids Health Alliance or maybe a city, what would it be? Would it be a certain kind of counselor who comes in and talks to young men about being able to share? Would it be putting together groups where you guys sit down and do it? Like,
I say like let's do it from a sports, like, because I'm a sports guy.
Right.
So like, say a football coach, maybe when in a group huddle, just say, hey, if you guys ain't feeling right, just let's voice that right now. Like, I'm gonna listen. I just need someone that will listen to me. If I have a problem, don't like, say, oh, look at this guy. Just listen and be like, okay, I understand you. Just look at me and say, hey, I understand you.
So what for you, and I don't want to put you too much on the spot, but I think it's important because you're saying other guys will relate to it. And again, you don't look like someone who would be, right? I mean, if I could wear that powder blue thing, I'd be happy. Like, I can't pull that off. No, like whatever. You got a beam in your eyes, bright. What is it for you? Is it depression? Is it anxiety? Is it fear of the future? What's the thing that you find it hard to sort of admit, but you're going to just admit anyway?
I'm gonna say maybe fear of the future because I don't know what's going on anymore. Like, I don't know where we're going in the society, and I just fear of that just haunts me. I just don't know what to do. I don't know what to say.
Can you guys relate to that?
Yeah.
Guys, hands up if you can relate to him. Give him support if you can relate. Fear about what's going on. Guys, hands up if you can relate to it. It's hard to talk about this stuff, and you want a way to do it. Girls, can you understand that too? This guy right here is so many of you, whether in this room or not. He's so many of you, right? Somebody is him saying, I feel it, but I don't want to talk about it. And you be standing right next to you, friend of yours, right? And he's saying, let's do it, right? So one thing would be to figure out KHA to help figure out what could schools do. Maybe it is through sports. Maybe it is through different programs to create that sense that you guys can talk about it. Because you can't talk about it, it ain't good. All right. Oh, you.
That's not a student.
Sorry, you don't get to talk. Go ahead.
So I just wanted to draw back to what the young lady over there said, that in the African American community, mental health is really on the hush. And what you said, Mr. Nelson, is that people in higher age really put mental health on the hush. So what I would like to see organizations like KHA and the school board do is to reach out to our parents, to our grandparents, to our guardians, the people who are instilling in us the fact that we should not talk about this.
Yeah, and my belief also is that a lot of mental health issues really do start at home, and teaching your children how they should react to what people say, how they should talk to other people who are there with, and just an overall general understanding of how another human's mind works, because a lot of the time that is really overlooked. So people go out into the world who don't intentionally do things that mean to harm people, but they do it anyway just because they're ignorant to the fact that that's what their actions produce.
Zach, let me ask you something, then I want to let you get a comment in, but because we're going to wrap this up and come into move to school stuff, what would be, I meant to bring this up earlier. You guys have guidance counselors who've been put in the schools, right? Specifically, right? And the problem is that it's 7. There's like 7 is the problem. There's like 7.
There's 44 schools and 38 mental health counselors. All of those schools have at least 1,000 students in them, and that's just high schools. So if we go throughout the districts and we add in the 50 plus middle schools, the 100 plus elementary schools, that's not enough coverage for all the students in this county to get the type of help that they need.
Because you need more actual people giving guide. You guys want more actual guidance and support. Okay, I'll get to you guys in a second.
All right. So growing up, I went through severe OCD. Not like just like, I have to have everything neat and tidy. Like I was like picking up like rocks off the ground, stuff like that. Or I would like literally not be able to sleep at night without having a panic attack. I had suicidal thoughts at 4th grade, and what I would have told my 4th grade self, what I would have wanted that for my 4th grade self, is if people weren't so quick to invalidate my problems. I feel like a lot of people who have depression, anxiety go through the same thing, where it's so easy to invalidate and pretend like those problems don't actually exist. So not just having like conversations about this, but having access to resources, like with, as we brought up with the counselors, I would have loved to have a mental health counselor that actually like understood and like validated me for my issues.
Thanks for sharing them. And by the way, I think this is a really important thing, that resources isn't just counselors. And I want you guys to think creatively, because KJ is here. Resources could be other things that would make that possible. Your idea about sports programs, maybe it is just creating formats or things where you're more able to access different resources and given a more easy menu to get to them. Like, so you don't have to wait, it's because you really want those resources. So figuring out what would those be and how could they be, you guys could spread them on social media. I mean, if people gave them to you, like, hey, share the, instead of Stop the Steal, how about, share the mental health stuff? You know what I mean? Like something that would actually make a difference in a good way.
And the thing about guidance counselors in schools is guidance counselors aren't therapists. They are required to report certain things. Like if a student comes to them and says, hey, I'm having suicidal thoughts, I want to kill myself, they have to report that. They're not trained therapists to know what to do in those situations. And I don't know if anyone knows, but recently, because of the shootings that happened a couple of years ago in South Florida, DCPS did assign therapists, mental health counselors to every high school, but no one knows these things. Like I just found out like a couple of months ago. And so the thing of not informing teachers, not informing students, it's like a thing of like not having resources.
So information is what you're saying.
All right, I got another one over here.
Okay, hold on one second. And information is something they're saying, I'm talking to the guy from KJ, that they need more resources. And I think another piece of that you got that I want to pick up is being able to say what you really feel. I know a lot of people say that. They're afraid to say, you can't go in and say, I'm thinking about killing myself. You're right, that you're going to be lit up all over the place. If and I get it, but if you're really feeling that, how do they deal with that? Because it's a problem. I would tell someone, don't say you're feeling that. Just say you've thought about you never do it, but the thought occurred to you about life not being worth living. But that's not really being honest. If someone's really feeling it, but they can't tell you that because they know they'll be put into a lockdown. And so there's got to be a way to let people have the permission and freedom to say what they're really feeling. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Like what everybody's kind of saying, I think it's important that we emphasize the specific problems in Duval County. My bad, Taylor. Like she touched on the shootings in South Florida. In DCPS, I think that's what Zach touched on, that there are mental health counselors at the schools. And we also have, I think it's Wellness Wednesdays or Mental Mondays, but they just simply show a video and it's not interactive. They're not asking questions, but these students here, their presence speaks for them. They're okay with sharing their stories. They're okay with speaking out. They want change. And I'm saying probably most students want change, but everybody's not comfortable speaking out. So in a way, they're here speaking for the vast majority, saying that mental health is a problem. Or let me change that. Everybody has mental health. It's kind of like a pyramid: mental, emotional, physical. But our mental health isn't being taken care of, and that's what we need to address. And it's not simply just throwing money in some videos of saying, here, watch this in your homeroom. Now go back to class.
And Deanna, and you guys all know what she's talking about, the videos. Kind of a joke, right? Hands up if it's a joke. Right. So you guys need to realize that every student in Duval County basically thinks that's a joke. So even though it may look good on paper or be a good idea, you've literally got an entire population that's like when people our age go into a meeting where they make you watch the mandatory diversity video or whatever it's going to be in HR, and everybody like goes, drinks coffee and laughs like, okay, we got through it. Like it's not affecting them. And that's a big deal that it's not affecting you, right, Deanna?
It's not effective, but I think that's a great segue into our last topic, education.
Okay, let's go there. So we're in education.
Right here.
Oh, you're setting us up for education. Go.
Well, how you doing? Throughout my years in school and everything, I had like a very good experience with everything. I used to love school.
Hold that a little closer.
A little closer. Okay, there you go. I used to love school. You know, it's like my favorite thing. You know, take all the different classes, all the different maps and everything like that. But there's always one thing that I felt like was a lost aspect in school throughout the years, especially in Duval County, is like, you know, some people learn through listening, some people learn through seeing, but a lot of people actually learn through touching, like actually doing something. Because not everybody in his life is destined to be a doctor. Not everybody's life is destined to be an astronaut. You know, some people are mechanics. Some people are what you say woodcraft workers or like cooking and stuff like that. It took a lot of that out of our school systems, and people are not actually able to experience them. Not in all aspects of Jacksonville, but in some where you say more poor neighborhoods or people that have lack of funding to their schools, they're not actually able to go to school to experience things like that. And later on in life, they'll either get out of high school, don't go to college, and now they have nothing they really look forward to doing in school. And it just all prolonged the process of them slowly going down and down deeper to a hole, not knowing what they're going to do. Because there's like some little aspects and things that people could find and pick up in school that they can carry those off. So I believe in our education system, it should be a lot more career-based curriculums for our schools and people in there, so that it can actually set them up for life straight out of high school. Don't have to go to the extra step.
So career-based curriculum education, that's something that comes up a lot. You guys know what he's all referring to, right? And we kind of have a bias toward, you know, non-career based and toward people, you know, go to college. And trust me, I have more student debt. Like I would be advising me, think twice about going to college. Maybe not worth it, because you're just going to be in debt in the same place. I'm not knocking all college, but I'm just saying the lack of a focused effort to give, and maybe it's a partnership between high schools and a college and a prominent trade school to create a pathway for that goes right into college. You know, as a training pass, right? But you're saying career-based would be helpful, something others might agree with.
We have two comments right here.
Okay, let him go. Let her go here.
Okay. Hi, my name is Joelle Copeland. I go to Stanton College Prep, and one thing I feel about the education system, especially in Duval County, is it really is about the have and the have-nots. As someone who, my mom is in education, she's a teacher, she's done years being an assistant principal and a principal. As someone who has that perspective, like a lot of what I see is that a lot of the funding is just allocated to schools that don't need it. At my school, a lot of the kids there have a lot of resources to scholarships that they barely need. They have a lot of resources to our guidance counselors, giving help on college applications, filling out FAFSA, filling out all these different things, to where their parents are kind of more apt to help them fill that out. They don't necessarily need the resources. But then I know my mom has worked at other schools where the kids did need the resources and they just were not given them. Things like our computer basically updated every so often when we don't need new computers, because most of the kids there bring their own laptops. A lot of the privileged students in my school have like a certain outlook on education, like, okay, I'm going to college, I'm doing this, there's nothing else. There's no, I'm not going here, I'm not going here. No, it's straight to college.
So is the problem, and others can weigh on this, but I really want to get so we can move that toward what would be a solution on this. Is it resource allocation? Is it the lack that that somebody's not really looking at where resources versus not having the resources, right? That's the penny tax, right? Which will slowly start creating those resources, right? But some schools don't have the resources. But is it also they're not being utilized in a way that makes the most sense to you guys as students?
Yes, I think it's not just the fact about raising more money. It's about putting the money where the money is needed. So like a lot of the schools that do have the money do like renovate their schools like every 2 years when they really don't need to. A lot of those schools, they're getting a lot of the funding, but a lot of the other schools aren't, because kind of like someone else earlier said, Jacksonville is a segregated city. It's a lot of the, property taxes and different things like that kind of create this segregation to where you have areas where students cannot have new textbooks every year, like the textbooks are beat up. But then you have other areas where you're looking at, like my school, that's not necessarily considered in the best area, but the school there is still getting like a lot of resources to where we're like updating our textbooks like every year. I mean, I've never really seen like a really worn down textbook in my school. And I have the privilege to be able to say that, but other kids don't necessarily have that privilege.
Right. What would you guys say, if you were just to pick, Deanna, to dive in on this, biggest like top 3 problems that could be addressed around your schools. So it could be, that would be an example, like resource allocation, whatever. Top 3 problems, just shout them out. Give me a couple so I can see what people think. Guidance counselors. Okay, hold on. Guidance counselors, lack of support. So that's a support function. Not enough money or resources. Lack of allocation of resources. Others? Lack of information that will help you moving forward. So access to information, which comes up a lot. Yeah.
Like a lack of qualified teachers?
Qualified teachers. Qualified teachers? Whoa, you all are serious? Qualified teachers.
Oh.
So,
Okay, wow,
Rob,
that seemed to be a big one.
So piggybacking off of kind of what we're hearing, what I didn't hear was gerrymandering and redlining. I mean, policy is also an issue when it comes into play, but we're all students here, so we could speak beyond. I heard Dee say diverse teachers, then qualified teachers, the lack of support, and it also feeds into mental health. Teachers, well, I don't think we're allowed to drop out till we're 16, so we're required to go to school. These are people we're interacting with every day. And while they are getting paid in the same way, they should be obligated or should in some way care for the teacher. We have teachers present and we have school board members present. Though we haven't introduced them, they're sprinkled out and they're listening. They're here to listen, but that isn't always the case with most teachers, or at least with the classes that matter, the classes that you have to deal with, if that makes sense.
So the gerrymandering issue, the redlining, you guys, that's not going to go away. I mean, that's just built into politics in pretty much every city. If you can make that go away, Deanna, awesome. But I think that's a hard problem to fix in the short term. But the other issues you're talking about, right, are ones that could be addressed. Every one of these things you brought up is something that could be. Deanna, you said last night, like the whole thing with Lee High School doesn't actually have air conditioning that works. Well, it works, but it doesn't work right.
So,
because it's an old building.
So,
go ahead, explain it.
So the reason I was actually one of the speakers in favor of the half penny tax, simply because Lee, my school, is slated to get $8 million, but it's specifically for security enhancement and infrastructure. And the city of Jacksonville, Andrew Jackson, Robert E. Lee High School, I believe Stanton and Landon are the oldest schools. Therefore, they're protected by the historical law, so they cannot be renovated. Joelle over there spoke about going to Stanton, one of the best academic schools, like stellar education. They're often getting praised for it, but it's in a really bad neighborhood. Lee, on the other hand, I wouldn't say that I'm in early college, so we're competitive academically as well, and we're in a better neighborhood.
But wait, Lee High School can't be renovated.
It can, but there are certain regulations that go into it. But also, there's a lot of things on the docket. The reason we're holding this town hall is because 2020 was catastrophic on all accounts. And if anything, there was a surplus amount of information, a surplus amount of things that we saw in the media, kind of messing up everybody's priorities in a way. On the docket, we had the half penny tax, but then we also had the name change of Lee, stating that Lee needed the name change because the full name is Robert E. Lee because of the Confederate history. But then also we were talking about the money for the school because the school's falling apart. We don't have enough security. The school's overcrowded. That's not just Lee. There's a whole bunch of schools on the docket.
Right.
So I think what we need to address is the lack of priorities. You heard the students say the problems. Nobody brought up the name change yet, but that's not the biggest thing. At the end of the day, my diploma will still say Robert E. Lee.
Let me ask you guys something. Hands up on this one. Just a quick one. Which is more, I'm not saying they're not both maybe important to you, but which is a higher priority? Changing the name of the school or getting enough resources? Hands up if it's changing the name of the school. Hands up if it's enough resources. Just, yeah, but in general, yeah, but she was saying Lee, but yes. Okay.
Okay, wait. Prior to him speaking, though, please introduce yourself correctly. I am the current senior class president, but he is.
I'm the former senior class president, Robert E. Lee. Okay. I think if we were able to actually change the name and change the culture of the school, a lot of things would change. And I think
there's a culture change issue in all this too.
I think it's a lack of culture, especially at that school. When you think of Stanton and when you think of Paxson, sometimes when you think of Raines, when it comes to like pride, there's things that you can identify. But when it comes to schools like Lee, all you think about is, oh, I know someone who went to Lee. Not, oh, I know someone who did yada, yada, yada. You know what I mean? There's no culture. There's no culture there.
Okay, go ahead. I don't know if is the mic working yet.
I like what Evan said about it being no culture, but I wouldn't say that there isn't any culture. I would say that it's more about the inclusivity of each like student themselves and how they decide to be joined into it. So it's a lot of students that feel like they're being left out of things because, oh, I don't want to do a sport or I don't want to stay after school. But it's like, there's many other things besides that. And then the other thing you were saying about resources being allocated, I think that was very interesting because I don't think it's black and white. I think it's sometimes for some schools, resources can't be allocated, while for other schools, it's that they really just like, we don't have any at all. It just depends on where you are and it depends on equity and equality.
Wait, so, piggybacking off what they said, because this is my school, the name changing the name sets the tone for what we saw in 2020, a social justice movement, acknowledging the history and moving forward. So while the name does need to be changed, there also needs to be money poured into that school and every other school.
Exactly.
And it doesn't matter if you go to Stanton or DA or Fletcher, completely different sides of town. But money, not just money, but support needs to be going into these students, and not just for seniors, for every student, because the students are the next generation. And the problems that we're talking about here, they matter because they'll be on our backs tomorrow. And if that's not acknowledged, then what was the point of this?
Right. I think that's a really, really good point.
I got someone over here.
I don't know where you are, but okay. Okay, go ahead.
My name is Kayla Lockett, and I attend John Robot High School. And as far as resources go, as far as ACT, SAT prep, we have little to none of that at all. And if you go to a school as Stanton or Paxson, they have all types of SAT prep. And the students at John Robot High School, because it is a, you could say, lower class, poor neighborhood, they don't have the money to go out and get a tutor or do such of that matter. And also, there's like leaks in the roof at Ribault High School, and it's just like we have to put trash cans there to get it. And it's just like other schools are getting all this money and all that, and it's just like, well, do y'all care about our school? Like, what's the issue?
Right. So again, the resource allocation, and we guys were just running pretty much out of time, so I'm going to let some people who haven't talked go.
I would like to piggyback on what she said, because I also go to John Ribault, and ever since I've been there, it seems like this school has become more of a prison. Because when I first went there, it was all open and everything, but then now they started adding all these security. They started adding all this security, which is not working, because multiple times a person has come onto the campus with a gun. So it's like, oh, where is all this money going to? If you're saying you're putting all this money into security, but the security is not working.
That's a great point.
All right, I got someone over here.
Hi, my name is Micaiah Stevens. I go to Ed White. I feel like some of them do have the resources, but they put it out to people that they feel like deserves them, and not everybody. And some administration and teachers, they don't really appreciate their job, and they don't do their job like they're supposed to. Like, we have the programs, but they just sit there and they don't teach, or they barely show up. And when they come back, we have 10 assignments due that day.
Okay, thanks.
What I would like to say is I went to Raines for 2 years, and I currently go to John Ribault as well. I can't really relate to Lee and all these other schools getting money and all this half-cent tax going in, and the district has been getting money for years. And I honestly don't understand how y'all can sit here and say we don't have enough resources, we don't need to have this, we don't have that, when for the past years, decades upon decades, the schools been getting money. But guess what? The money ain't going to the schools, the money ain't going to the students, the money ain't going probably to the teachers. I go to Ribault. We have a huge problem with the money going to the administrators. We have a huge problem with that. I have a huge problem with people at Lee saying something about how y'all ain't getting stuff. how it ain't diverse, how it ain't this, how it ain't that. On the other hand, I have to constantly keep defending schools like Reigns and schools like Reebok from schools like Lee talking about us. Yes, and I had to before. So am I a little mad about it? Yes, I am. Because I'm going to speak the truth about it. Because I'm not going to keep sitting here and letting y'all say all these things that are wrong and say all these things that are bad. Because some of this stuff can't be changed. Some of the stuff already has been put into effect. So no, I'm not going to sit up here and keep letting this happen. Keep letting all these things being bad talked about, Reebok or Reigns. Because that's not going to happen. Nothing is not going to keep happening is dislocation and allocation of funds. Because we have it. This half-cent tax, what is it going to do? Nothing. I guarantee you nothing will change in 10 years.
Well, that's the goal here, right? Is that that's not true. I'm not saying you're wrong. I appreciate you being honest about it from your perspective. But that's a real challenge when people, and guys, we are running out of time, so I'm going to have to wrap the comments, but that's a real challenge what this guy's saying when he's not the only person who provides the perception that nothing's going to change. And the money's going to the wrong pockets, and it's not going to change. So something to think about. Because we're out of time, you can be the last comment, and then I promised I would give the adults in the room each like just a minute and a half to kind of comment, and I want to ask you guys to all share something with them. So you get the last comment.
All right, really quick. Let's talk about 1, qualified teachers, and 2, the curriculum. At DA, there are some teachers who said the N-word. So I have an acting class, hence that I am in performance theater. And our teacher was like, oh, don't y'all go saying that N-word. He said the full word. And we're like, that's not acceptable. You know, that's not what you're supposed to do. And our history teacher said the N-word as well. There's just so many teachers who feel like they have the authority to say this word just to be historically correct. That's one thing. All right, to the other one, the curriculum. Why do we not have more Black history being taught in our classes? In our school, Douglas Anderson, we have theater of color, and we have a teacher specifically for theater of color. Why is it called theater of color when there's supposed to be just theater? We have theater history. Why isn't that underneath theater history? The same thing about February being the Black History Month. Black History Month should be every single day. I'm so sorry. Every single day should be Black History Month. Every day we're supposed to be uplifting and encouraging all races. Hispanic Heritage Month. We should do Asian Heritage. Just uplifting everyone so everyone can be equal. Like that's the whole point of this. Like no one's listening to us, and that's the problem because no one's listening.
So the good news is people are listening, whether they'll do anything with that, right? And by the way, this dialogue doesn't stop here. You guys have to commit to keeping it going. So one thing I want to toss out is, and I'm going to let them each have a minute and a half, is how many of you are willing to keep a dialogue going with the various city entities if they're willing to do it? Like if they're willing to say, okay, we'll agree to have, we'll get 10, 15, whatever it is, representatives. How many of you hands up would be willing to actually be a voice that would sit down in a room, whether it's with the school board or JSO or KHA or the council or whatever? Yeah? Okay, because we're going to, Deanna and Zach are going to get you guys all to sign up for that, because I think that's actually something real, is this has to go forward in a meaningful way, right? Where there's stuff happening.
Small talk groups.
So I promise you guys would each get, no, it's not a lot of time, and I'm not expecting you to respond to everything that they have said by any means. More important would be a chance for you to sort of offer what kind of a bridge maybe could happen to keep this dialogue going, and whether you at least, heard them. Because again, I can only give you each like about a minute and a half, and I apologize, it can't be more, but this is for them mostly to talk.
Okay. All right. You're right. There's a whole lot to unpack today in terms of what has been discussed. But listen, this is what I like to say. And I like what you just said, because I would like to work with all of the young people in this room right now. And I'm going to tell you exactly how I want to work with you. There were a lot of different comments made about law enforcement today. Tonight, I should say. And what I would like to do is I would like for you guys to work with me to see whether or not what you said tonight is actually reflected by factual evidence to support it. Let's have that discussion, because what I think we hear a lot in terms of what we saw on social media. It could be a officer involved shooting. It could be another type of incident that may have occurred in terms of law enforcement interaction with the community. But is that supported by facts? And so let's have that conversation. We talked about over policing. I heard a lot of different comments. Is over policing, in terms of what was said tonight, is that actual factual in terms of what's going on in the city? And we have an open data and transparency page, and that would be really a great.
But let me interrupt you for a second. And again, I don't want to make, but the point for me would be, you heard how they feel, whether it's accurate 100% or not. That perception is not good. And it's on you guys to help change that perception. Would you agree with that? That some way you guys are, it can't just be you guys look at the facts, that to some level they're saying, help us change that perception. Is that something you think JSO's open to figuring out how to do with them?
Oh, we're already doing that.
Well, not enough, because they all had that perception.
Well, let me ask you a question, and I always like to ask this question because we passed out a pamphlet before this meeting started. It's about what do you do in terms of police encounters. And my question to everybody in this room is, what are the expectations of the Black community in terms of dealing with law enforcement? What are the expectations? I mean, what do you guys expect out of the Black community? Are there any expectations in terms of their conduct as well? Because we're never going to solve this problem just talking about what the police are doing. We also have to talk about what is going on in terms of the dynamics between the police and the Black community.
And I think you guys would probably all acknowledge that that's a valid thing, right? Hands up if you acknowledge that there's that process is part of it. Yeah? Okay. So you guys, Deanna and Zach, right? The point here is you're open to actually meeting with people who would want and creating some way that they can actually talk about real things that might happen.
And we're already doing that. And so when you said, I'll tell you an initiative we just started with Bishop John Guns and St. Paul Church and Bethune-Cookman University. We just had 4 different sessions with students at Ed White High School, 12 students who have partnered with 12 different police officers. So we're working together in terms of bridging that gap in terms of that relationship.
And I believe you are, but I want to be clear. An entire room representing a lot of students here has a perception. So I'm not trying to be unfair, and I'm merely saying whatever's being done isn't enough to change their minds.
Yeah.
And they're willing to work on it.
We understand that you're doing things, but we still feel this way. As you can see, we've all voiced our opinions on the situation. And yes, you're doing things, but we don't see that change happening whatsoever in the community.
So let's move that forward. And I got to move to the other people. But I know there's not enough time, but the point is you're here, and the chance is to, after this, to move it forward.
Well, let me just say, we want to work with you guys. I got my card. I'll be more than happy to give you my card to anybody in here. And let's have some dialogue, and let's have some talk, some discussion about it. And then let's come back together and let's talk about some of the issues that we're discussing.
And that's good. And whoever had the idea of a barbecue, that's a great idea. Maybe we do a barbecue.
Yeah, let's barbecue. Let's do it.
Okay, we're on. Barbecue's on.
So
okay.
just to clarify.
Yes, Deanna.
That means that after this, sorry guys, I'm right here. I know people are looking around.
Stand up.
Oh crap. So just to clarify, after this event, after we all leave, the organizations hosting this is Rob Nelson, of course, and Spear. You guys and hopefully some of your coworkers would be willing to sit down with the youth of Duval County and discuss actual events to take place, like a barbecue, like a community service event. So you're willing to not have a conversation so much as a planning committee, an event.
Let's do it.
Okay.
It's sorry, on record. We'll do it.
Say your first and last name again real quick.
Oh, come on. He's on board.
Here's my card right here for you.
Thank you.
He's on board. He's on board. All right, making our way through. We're running out of time, but we're gonna get it all in.
All right.
Thank you. If you wouldn't mind standing up.
Oh.
You don't have to.
Okay. I'm Kelly Coker. I'm the school board member for District 1, so I actually represent this area. And first off, I just want to say thank you. And I will say something. We talked a lot about the things the district needs to improve on tonight, but we are getting a lot of things right because you all are amazing. And what I took away from tonight in this dialogue is just, it's tremendous. I want to thank some of you for your comments on career-based education. It's so true, and we've got to do better with that. Wellness Wednesdays, I heard you, and I will go back to the school board with that. Thank you.
Yay! One change already happening.
There you go. The information about ACT and SAT prep,
that came from back here. Thank you for that. And that we appear to maybe have a disparity and we don't know, but we need to explore whether we do or not. I will say the young man here who quietly said communication is an issue. I think that's a lot of this. And so thank you for what you said on that note. It didn't get a lot of play, but I think we've got to do a better job communicating with you all about things like the mental health that's available through the Marjorie Stoneman piece that y'all don't even realize is there. So I thank you for the dialogue. I thank you for allowing me to be here to listen. I am going to challenge you with one thing though, because that's what educators do, which is one thing that would help with all of these issues is funding. Right now in the state of Florida, our base student allocation that we receive is one of the lowest in the country. And we need you all to do two things. One, let your local legislative representatives in Tallahassee know you want better for you all, okay? Item number one. Item number two, how many of you are 18? How many of you are turning 18 in the next 2 years? Make sure you're registered to vote and vote for people that are going to invest in public education. Fair enough? All right.
Okay, and one thing I want to just say to you is, is listening to them, what became really apparent to me is how much you didn't know that they were saying. No, and that's not your fault. What I'm saying is that's why there needs to be an ongoing path, because you guys aren't hearing what they're saying if they're not, so there needs to be the same way with the police, a way that you guys can be getting more direct input.
And I want to also say one other thing. I charge you with one other thing. Deanna mentioned on multiple times policy. Dig into policy, learn policy. Changes in policy bring about massive changes in JSO or in the school district or in the city. Dig into policy about the areas you're concerned about. Learn what the policy is, okay? And Deanna, thank you for bringing that topic up.
And same thing, can we arrange for something where the board will convene?
Two things. Number one, I am the member for School District 1. I am on the website. My email, my phone number is right on the school board website. I think I'm also in the system where you can email me through the district, but you can go through there. And secondarily, I'm going to talk to the board about doing some listening sessions throughout the school year and see what we can do about that. Okay?
And there can also be food.
Oh, can I come to the barbecue?
I think so, if you're invited. You're invited.
Yes, you
Okay.
can.
Yeah.
You're with KJ.
Yeah, Kids Hope Alliance. First of all, I want to say I'm proud of y'all. Y'all rock. I was kind of just sitting back thinking when I was at Robert E. Lee High School, where we was a very diverse. I was an athlete, as long as with Chief Mitchell and Councilman Freeman. We was athletes, so that was important in our lives, and especially in mine. When I had both parents, I had a foundation. I had both parents that was working at my siblings, and my parents did not have to pay for any tuition. So my point is this here: at Kids Hope Alliance, we looking at these different things that have mental health, out of school time. Who heard of Team Up? Team Up? Y'all heard Team? So Team Up is one of the fundings that we get from our city council person like Terrence Freeman, be able to support what you're doing, your education piece, the mental health. I mentioned about lack of counselors, but one young lady said it's more counselors we just don't know about. So we fund 60 additional therapists to be able to go in and support what you're doing. So we're here to support you. We hear you. I love to be part of this dialogue to continue to support your effort. I'm proud of y'all. Thank you.
But there is not clearly whether it's there, they don't know about it, or not enough's there. And I would just say as a challenge to any adult, when you have an entire room of young people saying we're worried about our mental health and we need more help with it, man, I would throw every single dollar I got to be like, this can only be bad if we don't do that. Whether it's somebody goes too far, somebody dies, like the cost is so much worse than whatever it would cost to give them what they want. And somebody's not doing enough to make sure they got it.
Well, let me give you a challenge. The challenge is be true to yourself. If you have a problem, talk about it to your adults. Don't assume that your parents or grandparents won't listen. I have a 21-year-old. You got to talk about it. Just 2 days ago, one of our providers called me. One of their former students jumped off the Matthews Bridge 2 days ago. Right before he jumped, he called his mom and said, "Mom, I love you. Listen, your family love you. You don't came this far. We have seen, I know Chief Mitchell, y'all are blessed. Cause you know what? I'm from Grand Park. It's some kids that I had in Pop One, and guess where they at? They dead. You have an opportunity. I know a lot of things seem like it ain't going right, but you're here. You got a chance. You have tomorrow to get it right. Thank you.
All right, and Deanna? Deanna, what do you want from KHA?
Seeing that you guys help finance most of the nonprofits and big events here, we'd love to have a dialogue about financing. Hopefully, maybe like what is it called? I don't know if anybody remembers the Black Expo, but something like an Opportunity Expo. So that we can talk about these resources from law enforcement to mental health to education, talk about the organizations pushing forward, talking about the resources here for the kids. So hopefully financing something along with that.
And where's Rodney? He's here. Rodney's on. Well, Rodney's part of
Rodney had to step up.
Yeah, he's over there. Rodney's part of our youth leadership group where we get them be able to learn job skills and different things. So there's resources out there that I think.
But she's asking for a specific thing that you would agree to do
Well, I already told her what we're gonna do. We communicate and we continue to do what we do. We'll have more of these. And that's where I have my card. You get Deanna, you're a Lee High School. I'm a Lee High School grad. You get my card and you contact me. That's how we'll do that.
To moving forward to planning more events, not just like this, but providing opportunities for other students, correct?
Resources.
Resources.
Resources. You need resources.
And money.
Resources. That's
Thank
part
you.
of resources.
Right, awesome. So let's trade the things here. And finally, Councilman Freeman.
Oh, I can't touch that.
I can't.
No, my pleasure. Well, one, thank you for inviting me to be a part of this. I am honored to be here with the topics mental health, policing, and education. I'm a former educator. I spent 14 years in education, finished as a principal. I'm married to an educator, going on her 13th year in all Title I schools. And I'm the proud father of 4 daughters, 12 and under. I ran on a foundation that I'm running for my daughters. I'm here tonight because I have learned in the last 5 or 6 years, as one that they told me the best way to positively impact the lives of kids is through policy. I'm not ashamed to tell you in this room that I was in my 30s and didn't know what a city council member was. But here I stand to tell you 6 years later, after learning it, I am one. The path wasn't easy, the journey wasn't easy, but my purpose and my calling kept driving me to get to this point. So I'll land with this. Budgets, these organizations, I fully respect what they do and will continue to support it. But we vote and I vote on their ultimate budget. 2021 for me, and I put it out on social media, is my year to listen. God gave me 2 ears and 1 mouth, and to come back with policy. During the past budget talks, and I'll land here, there were so many people that called for reductions in budgets in various parts of our overall $1.3 billion budget. At that time, I sent text messages to the sheriff. I sent text messages to the union president. I sent them to everyone saying we have collectively have to come together and we got to find areas where we do agree. We often talk about where we disagree, and we continue to create this delta, this divide of where we disagree, and we omit the areas where we do agree and where we can bring about change. I'm committed to that change this year. So yes, I have mentees that are some of you in this room. They sit with me. When we voted on Lot J, one of my mentees walked into City Hall with me, into my office, walked in the back room and sat on the front row. I do that. I provide that access because it wasn't provided for me as a young man that grew up on the south side of Tallahassee and never stepped foot on the Capitol. I'm good. Thanks.
So just quickly, what could be done in terms of city council, and maybe it's something that the mayor's office has to do, that would involve more young people in the policymaking process, other than you individually? Like, is there a way they could be part or some kind of thing? And I know there's the mayor council, and a lot of you think that's a joke. So, I mean, something that's meaningful.
Let me be clear. The mayor's side is the executive branch. The council side is the legislative. Okay, so they're 2 separate bodies. So that is one pathway, is to go through the mayorals, and I help find jobs. And matter of fact, I had one as my intern with COVID over the COVID period when KHA had to change their structure a little bit. But on the council side, what can you do? My challenge, and I heard a lot of people challenging, one challenge, call us out on our challenges, right? If they offered their phone number to you, wear it out. Send emails, see how quick they respond. I have a 48-hour policy. You send me something, you care enough, I'm going to care enough to get back with you, which it might be, hey, I got your message, I'm going to follow up. But what can we do? I would love for you all to, I want to just continue to be a part of this conversation with a focus on how do we change, how do we come back with some policy that we can actually affect good and bring it forward to our council and my colleagues. And I'm willing to do that for you.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here, the adults in the room. Deanna, Zach, thanks for making this happen. Where'd Deanna go? She's always so hard to find. There she is. Come up, we're finishing. And you guys, thank you. Was this, did you guys get something out of this? Do you feel something from it? Are you going to follow through and make the change? Light up their phones, bug them, stay on them? Seriously, right? This is all on record. It's public voice now. So honestly, take them up on it. Don't do what Councilman Freeman said, blow their phone lines up and get that you guys are the change, right? You are the change, right? I'm tired. I'm retiring.
We are all tired.
Deanna, take it up. Come up here. Why are you hiding out?
Yeah.
She wants to stay off camera.
To kind of piggyback on to piggyback off of what Mr. Freeman said specifically, I shot him sent him an email maybe a year ago, and I was able to meet with him at City Hall. So these politicians, they want to hear what you have to say. I know politicians can be a scary word and it has stigma behind it, but they truly do care. Mm-hmm. Or if anything, they want to hear what the youth have to say. So, or if they don't want the word to get out, that they ignored the youth's vote. So voice. So speak up. And I appreciate everybody being here. But one person who did not get, who was not able to speak, who I really do want to speak, is a teacher who was here recently, or a teacher who is here, and she's actually way back there. So we can quickly.
So we're going to have to give you 30 seconds because we are at the end of our thing. So you're going to have to go fast. I'm sorry.
Hello, everybody. I'm Mrs. Lewis, former teacher at Lee High School. That's been mentioned a lot tonight. As of last Friday, I decided to leave the classroom for several reasons, mainly because of lack of representation. For the last 5 years, I was the only Black English teacher at Lee. And so all the mention of the name change, the young lady who was talking about qualified teachers, humbly speaking, I feel that I was overqualified for my position, and I asked a lot to do more as a writer. My students who lacked comprehension skills, who lacked the ability to express themselves, and having to stick to a curriculum that was based on a standard that was so fixed, I couldn't be flexible in the classroom. And it was a very emotional decision for me. Lots of my students are here tonight that I'm still very emotional trying to be around and support. Deanna, I say to her, she's one of the best students I never had. As a 10th grader, the principal brought her to my classroom because she wanted to meet a Black teacher who could be her mentor. And I was the only Black English teacher there to support her during that time. And to watch her flourish and be able to host events like this is very important for the district to realize that not just Black women, Black men, Black teachers in general need to be in schools like Lee, like Ribault, like Raines, to help our students see that representation and know that they can lead outside of the classroom.
That's a great point. So dialogue right here. All right, you guys, we're out of time. So thank you all for being part of this. Everybody who watched and interacted, and share the stream, you guys, because even if people didn't, now they can watch the stream. Share the YouTube link afterward. People can still watch it, be part of it. And let's commit to keeping the dialogue going and doing it again, right?
Right.
All right. Thank you all for being here. Give yourselves a big hand. Come on, you stepped up. This is what we need. You guys are the future. Seriously, you want to rely on us? Look at the mess we've made. As Deanna said, 2021, you thought 2020 was bad? Look how whatever. Well, it happens when 2020 grows up and can drink. It's 21. Whatever. I'm bad at the jokes. Thanks for watching, you guys. See you next time.
All right.